So here's the continuing framework, and the front is set. The rear needs to be clearance so that the axle has upward travel, and the existing frame with the ride height I've got set gives it about 2 inches of upward travel. Not enough, so I'm going to be altering that. I was originally thinking of putting some kind of cut-in This thing here is what I meant, but I decided against it. Not frame, but kind of an A-shaped box thing I've seen done on other trucks that are getting slammed, and it seemed like it would be straightforward enough just to use plate, put it in, make it perfect, then cut out the old frame. And looking closer, I realized that the rear end of the frame is going to require a fair amount of work. Those cross members that are sitting there just aren't going to cut it for what I need, and the rear rails were too tall off the ground. So that was gonna get changed anyway. So now the plan is to just hack off the frame and then integrate a new 4x2 rectangle tube box frame into the back end that gives me all the clearance I want up and over the axle, and then drop the rear rails down lower so that they make a little more sense for what I'm doing. And so where I started with that was making a template of the existing frame, which is that kind of lined out angled piece there, and then drawing kind of what was ideal, tweaking it around. And I had I'm using a RideTech 4-link in the rear, so I pulled those brackets out and kind of thought about what would work and what wouldn't, and so that integrated pretty well and gave me all the heights and distances I need. I don't think that needs to be quite as tall, but it's going to make doing shock mounting that much easier, and it means absolutely nothing to me inside the car, so it was fine going up that high. And plus I felt like, well, I'd rather give myself a couple extra inches in there than wish I had done something different later. So that's how that worked out. The rear end is, the cardboard wasn't as long as maybe perfect, but that tail section goes another 9 inches or so, but the detail is there. So we're going to start hacking and cutting and fabricating that thing and see how it goes. Thanks. Okay, it's go time. I got both sets cut. This one's ground, laid out perfect, and I am going to tack weld it. So this is after a long day of welding and grinding and welding and grinding and grinding and welding and clamping and propping things up. Everything went fine. It was work, but hey, it's all part of it. So here's the next morning, came in, cleaned up, drank a ton of coffee, drank some more coffee, and realized that I should put some braces in there to make sure everything stays parallel, especially as I get serious about attaching it to the existing frame. I've got it kind of held in there for now with a bunch of good solid strong welds, but I fully intend to box that section in there and plug weld the holes and then put a plate on the backside. And so getting it all parallel and placed exactly the way I want it while I'm doing all that work made a ton of sense. So with all those braces in, I was able to get the 4x2 new frame completely welded into the existing frame and let it cool. And then I took all the braces out because the next portion is going to be working on making patterns and getting in there to figure out what I'm going to do for boxing the opening on the C channel. So I wanted to just be able to walk through there and start to fabricate that. Okay, so moving on to the next part, which is actually starting to put brackets on everything. And the plates are welded in, and the side of the frame had about a bazillion holes in it from all of the rivets for the original cross member. So I plug weld all those. And I actually ended up putting little pieces of scrap steel on the backside to just make it easier to plug. I was playing around with holding some heavy copper up against it, and didn't really seem to make much of a difference, so I just threw some steel in there. I left some holes, or not holes, but I left some openings from the original design, and I've got a a rocker wax kit coming, because while I was able to spray the inside of it with a fair amount of weldable primer where I needed it, I also feel like, okay, why not? Let's just shove some in there and see if that makes any difference long term. I don't suspect this thing's going to get a ton of water, but you know, you never know. Well, that wraps up the framework for this part of the project. The cross mounts will obviously have to go in, and they are going to be integrated with the next video with the suspension getting laid out. So hang tight, like, follow, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that stuff. Appreciate the support, and thanks for watching.